Yeah, it's a great question. I suppose I'm lucky in that I do radio on ABC Radio Ballarat every Tuesday morning, and so I'm still being sort of forced, if you like, to write stuff because I've got to go on the radio and do sort of 20 minutes every Tuesday morning. Um, and I'm actually a pretty lazy person at heart, and if I don't have that reason to be doing stuff. So, for example, if I didn't have the radio and I didn't have any gigs happening, I'd find it very easy just to shelve comedy. As much as I love doing it, it is hard. It's hard to write. It's hard to, especially going from Ballarat into Melbourne. It's hard to make the travel to go into Melbourne. It's hard to make the travel to go to Geelong. At the moment, if I wasn't being forced, I could probably shelve it, and that's really bad. And I think that's sort of part of it. That once you take that away, um, it's hard to explain. It's like any skill. If you stop doing it, you lose it, don't you? And you lose the passion as well a bit. Through social media, these days, it's a bit better in that you can post things on Facebook. You can post things on Instagram as long as it's under a minute. You can post things on various other places on the internet where you can get those feelings out, and you can, albeit with slightly less immediate feedback, try that material and still have that creative outlet during this time where we have to be completely isolated. So, given modern technology that's at our fingertips, like what we're doing now, you can still interact and you can still do this stuff. So, if I suppose I wasn't as busy with my day job, and I'd be doing more of it myself as well. Yeah, I think so. I think there'd be a lot of comedians out there that'd be really struggling at the moment. They'd be going, "Well, how do I keep writing?" Look, literally, I mean, there's only so much you can write about being in isolation. You know what I mean? Unless you go really, off script and start writing about really bizarre stuff, which is good in itself. But there's just nothing happening around to sort of make comment on or to observe about. And then the opportunities to try that material are non-existent. Um, so you're not. So for example, like you say, if you're in Melbourne, you could go to 3 open mics in one night and try your material and hone it and craft it. For us from Ballarat or from regional Victoria, you might get to go to one. But yeah, I think it's affecting a lot of comedians in that they're just not getting a chance to try their stuff, to see what works and what doesn't work. And I think it'll be you might find a lot of comedians probably, I don't know, might almost give up on it depending on how long this goes. I mean, this could go for 6 to 12 months. We don't know yet. The reaction is, and I think it comes back to what you're saying about the cancellation of the comedy festival, is you can't let the anger or the frustration get to you because it's one of those things that you have zero control over. You literally no control whatsoever about it. Like, you just can't have gigs. You can't have more than two people together. So, and having said that, I did do a gig on the Gold Coast once to two people, and so, it does happen, but there's just no, it sort of, I suppose in a way it's good because it takes all that frustration, all that could I have done more feeling out of it, because you just can't. There's just nothing I can do to run a room or to make more money or to give more spots to more comedians, because the situation we're in just simply cannot do it. Yeah, my hope is, I have this dream that all the restrictions get lifted all at once, which they won't, but my dream is that they do, and that everyone just suddenly wants to get out and do everything. That you promote a show and it's sold out straight away. That people will have this, and look, to a degree, I think they will. They'll have this appetite for getting out in live performance, whether it be music, art, comedy, whatever it is. I think the appetite, when all this is over, whether it's 6, 8, 9, 10 months away, the appetite for live performance and just getting out and interacting with other humans, however that might be, will be enormous. And I think what comedians probably need to do is be ready for that, and room runners need to be ready for that. And it'll all be a matter of timing. And it's just, you're gonna have this moment where these restrictions are lifted, however that happens, where everyone's just gonna want to go out. Everyone's just gonna want to go stuff this. I want to get out of the house. I want to go and do something. So my hope is that we're ready for that when it comes, and that different, sorry, different facets of the arts, we can work together. Maybe you have, oh no, I've done them. You have music and comedy gigs where you have them side by side, or
Yeah.
comedy gigs at art galleries. Who knows? The options are endless, and they always have been. But maybe this thing where we've all been forced to do without, and then there'll be this sudden demand at the end. Maybe it'll force us to do things that we've never done before, and that'll be a really good time of creativity and thinking. My hope is that yeah, it will have created that sense of community that everyone's done without it for so long, and done without getting on stage or watching or whichever side of comedy you're involved in, producing whatever. Well, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and you sort of look back to the GFC, where there was all this hope about all this change that was going to happen out of it, and you sort of go, things sort of went back to the way they were, and you hope that that's not the same. You hope that that's my hope and dream is that, and I think it probably will, is that the comedy world will come together and we'll all be just so keen to put on shows wherever they are that we'll all just be eating up all this work, hopefully, that comes in our direction. I think we need to make sure that we're looking out for each other, that we're offering those opportunities to people that perhaps we wouldn't have before. Maybe does that sound right? Or that we're continually offering spots, that we're continually getting people to go to different places like Ballarat or Bendigo or Warrnambool or whatever, and that we're going to Melbourne, so that there's not this separation between regional and Melbourne, that we all become one thing. I suppose you could look on a purely logistical and administrative level, have grants that are specifically for rural and remote communities, to ensure that that money is specifically going towards the arts in those regional areas. And you just got to work on people's mindsets too. Like, it's funny when you try and book comedians to come out from Melbourne to Ballarat, how far it seems to be, but they're more than happy for you to go from Ballarat to Melbourne. You know what I mean? So it's that whole Melbourne idea that the world falls off a cliff at Preston. And I don't know, maybe it's something about changing mindsets, but I think you need specific funding just for regional arts, however that is, and including your stand-up comedy, your music, visual arts, sculpture, whatever it is. Have that pot of money that's available to develop these lesser known and young comedians. I mean, what we're not seeing these days that perhaps we used to was young up and coming comedians on TV. It's sort of a chicken or the egg thing. You need to get on TV to get the profile, but you need the profile to get on TV, and it's very difficult these days. Raw comedy is a great example. That this year we had a heat here in Ballarat, and we were the only heat outside of Melbourne, in Victoria. And you go, well, this is something that should be going everywhere regionally. There's not just great comedians in Melbourne, there's great comedians everywhere. And so I think, and I don't know how much funding raw comedy gets, but something like that would be a perfect vehicle, to take this stuff out into regional Victoria and indeed regional Australia.